with the white population moving into the West, those homesteaders, the railroads we're going to see eventually moving into the West, what's going to happen is that the Plains Indians, those Western Indians that are living in the territory, are going to face first encroachment and eventually violence and cultural decline as a result of that Western migration by the white population. Initially, this is going to be seen through the Indian Wars, which are the name given to these conflicts between the Native Americans living in the West and the white population as they move in. The one big example of this early on is referred to as the Sand Creek Massacre. The governor of Colorado had provided safe haven for what they refer to as friendly Indians, mostly Cheyenne and Arapaho Indians that were living out in that territory. A group of these Native Americans moved into Fort Leon and were offered protection by the governor there. The militia did not follow through with that protected plan. Militia from Colorado went to the fort, assumed that they were hostile Native Americans, and proceeded to murder men, women, and children and elderly. 165 Native Americans killed at the fort over a 7-hour window, largely just, they were unarmed. They were just mutilated and massacred. Congress actually led a report on this. They called it a foul and abusive massacre. The person that was in charge of the massacre, he resigned from his office. He went on to be sheriff of Colorado. He didn't face any real consequences at all. In fact, the men that served under him protected him in face of any consequence. So no one faced any real consequences for this, except for the Sand Creek, for the Cheyenne and the Arapaho that were killed there. What this does lead to is other tribes in the West seeing the encroachment of the white population and wanting to defend themselves. And in response to the Native Americans becoming more hostile, which, of course, why wouldn't they? The United States government commissioned new military units to be sent into the West to fight against the Native Americans. Oftentimes these were former Civil War units, but they also commissioned former Confederates. They they called them whitewashed Confederates, and they sent them into the West. More importantly, though, for us, they sent what were referred to as Buffalo Soldiers. These were 2 units of segregated black cavalry that went into the West. The Native Americans called them Buffalo Soldiers because they fought like buffaloes, but they're patrolling the West and they're going to fight Native Americans. Any effort, and there's several examples of this, especially under Grant, who wanted to have a more progressive policy, any effort to peacefully relocate the Native Americans ended badly. First of all, the Native Americans didn't trust the white men who were coming to move them. But secondly, whenever the white population wanted that land, that territory that was promised to the Native Americans, they just took it. And then the military came in and followed up behind that. So any sort of peaceful efforts always ended in violence and massacre, and it never went well for the Native Americans there.